Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking, we're going to continue to talk about physics 2D. So let's get started. First of all, I want to say that we're going to be using this package right here, which is this pixel bird package called Landscape Tiles and Birds. It's free as of, April 8th, 2021, and it's by Kin NG. So check it out if you want to, download this package for yourself. Let's get back to the physics 2D. So for physics 2D, what we're gonna do is all we have is a sprite renderer, and in our scenes we just have a game object that holds all of our clouds, and also the ground that holds all of our tiles down here, and then we have the main camera, and we just changed the skybox. The original color is something down here or something like that, so I just changed it to a light blue. We're gonna add the physics 2D component. So we're gonna go down here. In the previous videos I talked about the area effector, box collider, and buoyancy effector, and the capsule collider, so check that out. Now for the circle collider, it will be the same thing as the other colliders. So let me go to the scene view. Just like the other colliders, you will get this green line. You can edit it by clicking it right here, or by actually changing the offset right here, and also the radius down here. You could also add a physics material. I talk about this. This just gives it some sort of material like slipperiness, bounciness, a wood material. So if this object was walking on wood or sliding on wood, it would react differently. And then it has the info, which just talks about if it has a rigid body, if it also has the physics material. These are the physics material defaults for each collider. So that's pretty much it. And there's this contacts, and it says no contacts, so there's really nothing to talk about there. And then I explained this before too, is trigger. If this is this trigger, nothing will collide with it. So for two objects to collide, they both have to have a collider, and one of them has to have a rigid body. So for these two to collide, they both have to be non-trigger. So this has to be unchecked. If one of them is triggered, then they will just go through each other. So what this is useful for is when you're coding or doing your scripts, you could have something happen when an object goes through one of these colliders. And of course it doesn't even have to have a sprite render. It could just be some blank object like this. So if you get to this point, let's say you go to the next level, and I'll show you guys how to do that later on. But then we're going to continue. So that's pretty much that for the circle collider. Go back to physics 2D. And then composite collider. For the composite collider to work, it needs a rigid body, which it automatically adds for you. And then it needs some kind of collider that works with it. So for this example, we could use a box collider. 2D, which has this used by composite area or checkbox. So we'll check that off. And then we could adjust these values right here, and as you can see, the collider updates depending on those values. And then we could also add a edge radius to it, and then we could have either generation type, synchronized, manual, so we could change these settings and then regenerate it, so depending on what we wanted, keep regenerating. Then you could use polygons instead of the outlines. We could regenerate it, and of course that's what happens. And it has the same things. You could use by effector and its trigger. Now used by effector, it's these physics 2D objects like the area effector, or the platform effector. There's the buoyancy effector. If you're going to use any of those, you would check this box right here, and also the trigger box. So that's pretty much that for for these. If you guys have any questions, just let me know in the comments. I know I'm moving a little too fast, but these are pretty simple. There's some stuff that at first is kind of difficult to grasp, but once you get the hang of it, it's really easy to use. So then there's this constant force. Now for the constant force, I'm going to add it to this physics 2D object, which is our bird. So constant force 2D. Now the constant force would also, I think it also, adds the rigid body, if I'm not mistaken. So let me, see, it needs a rigid body. And then it adds a force depending on the global force or the relative force. So depending on this world space or depending on the bird. So, and then the torque is pretty much the speed or the power of the force. So I don't think it shows right here, but pretty much multiplies the force with the torque. So let's say we got a 10 and a 1, and then we hit play. So as you can see, we can see the bird rising slowly, and it starts rotating, of course, because it has the rigid body. And then we could also, so you guys can see the difference between the two of relative force and force. We're gonna add 10 on the relative force instead of the force now, just so you guys can see the difference. And as you can see, it starts leaning towards the left. Of course, you could adjust the x-axis as well. I just wanted to show you real simply, just, going straight up. Now I'm gonna put this at 10. Now for this next one, which is this distance force, or this distant joint, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this game object, and I'm gonna move it over. So if we go to our game, we can see it's over, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna flip it on the X so it could look at each other, and then I'm gonna change it just so we could see that they're two different birds. There you go. Now some of these were a bit small. What you could do to adjust it, if you guys don't know already, so you guys don't have to be changing the scale all the time, is you could go to any image that you want and change the pixels per unit. So when I first downloaded this package, it was at 100, and pretty much all images are set to 100 at first. So if I apply it, as you can see, it's really, really small. So what you could do, if you want to make it bigger, you just make the number smaller. If you want to make it smaller, you make the number bigger. It's a little confusing, but that's how Unity works. And now after that, we're gonna remove this constant force 2D, and we'll leave that. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the distance joint to this one. And right here, on the distant joint, you could enable collisions. So if you want these game objects to collide, both of these game objects to collide, you enable collisions. For now, we're gonna have them unchecked because we don't have anything to collide with. And then connected rigid body. So if I make this bigger, it says connected rigid body. We're gonna add this yellow one, so it would be this first one right here. Let me rename this just so it won't be confusing. Yellow bird physics 2D. So if we go back, I connected the yellow bird physics 2D rigid body, and then there's auto config connected, so we could automatically configure it. So if we go to the scene view, what this does, well, when I hit play, you'll be able to see it. What I was trying to show you is there's a line that goes between both of them to indicate the distance between both of them. And this is what this would be if you wanted to automatically configure both of these connections together. So, oh, there you go. So as you can see, this was kind of messing it up, but if we adjust it, we could automatically configure the two distances between each other. So I could set this to whatever I want. Same with this, and then the anchor would be where so the anchor would be the first where this distant joint is at. The connected anchor would be where it should end. And then we're just gonna auto configure, set this back to 0. And then there's auto configure distance, which same thing, you could change the distance. So how far you want them to be from each other, the distance you want them to be from each other. So for now, we'll just set it back to its default. And then we could set max distance only, so they never get close to each other. And then you could also have a break force. So this is the magnitude of force that will take for this invisible line to break. So this invisible line, we could have had like a rope indicating or making it look like a balloon was connected to this rope and it was making this game object float away. So if you guys remember, the yellow bird has this constant force 2D, which is going to make it just go straight up. And since these two are connected, what is supposed to happen is that once this yellow one goes up, this one will follow it. So let's just hit play so you guys can see. So, let me go back and see what happened here. I don't want this blue one to have any force or to fall down, so I'm going to set the gravity scale to 0 so it doesn't fall down and pull this one with it. So I'm going to hit play. So as you can see, this one's not moving because the gravity scale is at 0. This one's starting to move and it's starting to pull this one as well. So as you can see, it's pulling it with it. So you could use both the distant joint and the constant force 2D to simulate a balloon flying away, a hot air balloon, anything you really could think of that would need these two forces. So after that, we're just gonna delete this one and we're just gonna continue. This one's probably gonna be the last one that I'm gonna talk about for the video to keep it short. And then think it's gonna be another collider, so it should be real quick. Yeah, it's gonna be this edge collider. Now edge collider is just gonna be a line. So as you can see, it's a line, but this line you could adjust it anywhere you want, and you could click anywhere between these two endpoints. So between this left point and this right point, anywhere in the middle, or yeah, anywhere in the middle, and you could just, you know, make your own shape. Now this is for edges, so this is would be better for, like, let's say the ground, and not for an actual game objects like this bird. So this would be perfect for a ground, and let's say you had like a hill up here, so you could have the hill up here, and then as you can see, I'm kind of messing everything up so it's all red. But yeah, you can have, like, let's say this is a hill, it goes up, goes back down, and then it goes, to the floor again. So you could just have it like this, and this would be perfect for a floor. Now for a game object it would be different. For a game object, I'm going to talk about it later on, but for a game object you would use like a polygon collider. So as you can see, it kind of does it for you, it closes it up for you, and then you would just have to adjust it. And you could also, like the edge collider, click between the 2 points and add your own points. But that's pretty much it. So I'm going to wrap it up. That's it for this video. If it helped you in any way, hit that like button. It really helps me out. It really keeps me motivated to keep going with these videos, especially these simpler videos that, well, I find more simple, and a lot of people might find a little boring, but it will help all the beginners. And if I would have found more videos like this at the beginning, it would have helped me a lot. Like these colliders, even though this is simple to me and probably more simple to advanced users, I had a lot of trouble with colliders when I first started. I probably spent 30 minutes my first time trying to add a collider and trying to collide it with the ground. So hopefully this helps. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. Like I said before, I'm going to be talking about all these components: physics, playables, rendering, scripts, tile map, UI, video. All these components I will talk about. After that, we will probably do some codes while talking about this submenu over here. So talking about the terrain layer, the brush, all these legacies, or this legacy cube map, the UI kit, GUI skin, even though some of these I haven't really used as often, and some of them probably aren't used as often anymore. I will talk about them. That way, if you guys could incorporate it in your project, if it will help you in your project, then it would be perfect. You guys will have a video to kind of reference and help you along the way. I'm going to be talking about these shaders, the standard surface shader, unlit shader, all this. In future videos, I'm going to be making, a couple mini games. So just stick around for all that. Hit that subscribe button. And thank you once again.